These are some of my Valentine's projects, and I'm going to show you what adhesives to use to hold these together so they look quality and so they last, and just how to use my different adhesives and which ones I use for what. Okay, these are all the items that I'm going to show you today, and real quick I'm just going to tell you some basics about, if you have these two, you can make any card and any 3D project and keep it together. There are some products I like better than these two, but if I only have two, these are the two I want. Very, very strong. And if I ever have two large pieces of cardstock that I need to stick together, this is going to do it and it's going to stay. This is also forgiving, so if I put it on wrong before it dries, I can fix it. Love that. This one is great for ribbons, it's great for designer series paper, and it's great to use in conjunction with the Scotch. If someone has put their card together using just the Tombow and it starts to come apart, I can just put a little dab of this under the four corners and hold it down, and that will work great. So I think if you have these two, you can get anything to stick together. Okay, here's an example of putting designer series paper onto cardstock. So I just put a strip on this and it's going to stick really, really well. But since I do have staples, I'm going to use this. I put a little pin in the top to keep it open, and I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny little drop in each of those corners. Because of those staples, I want this to be tight. I don't want the staples to affect it. So this is going to go on perfect and smooth, and with that little tiny bit of the Scotch glue, it's going to stay really tight. Snail adhesive is the best if you want ribbon to stick in place. It's one of the only things that will do it. So I put a little bit of snail adhesive on this ribbon, and I put it on scratch paper so I wouldn't get it everywhere. And I want it to cover those staples in the back. So I put it on, and I can stick it just like that, perfectly over the top to hide those. And then this will stay on really, really, really well. And then I can tie it in the front. Real quick, I'm going to show you a 3D project, and I'm going to use cardstock, plastic with cardstock, and designer series paper. So if I want to, the first thing I want to do is adhere these two things together, and then I'm going to put these on that. Okay, so first, to put this on, since it's designer series paper, I'm just going to cover the entire thing everywhere with the snail adhesive, all the way to the edges, right into the center of that heart. Okay, this plastic stuff works really well with snail adhesive. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny bit of this glue in the corners just to get the corners to stick. Now once you get glue on, you have to kind of go fast. So I'm going to put this through here, and it's going to stick really nicely because it's cardstock and designer series paper. Now I'm going to put this on cardstock. So this has got all the snail adhesive, but this part doesn't, so I'm just going to do a really thin layer, and that's going to get it to stick on to this cardstock. Cardstock to cardstock, glue, designer series paper to cardstock adhesive. Now the snail adhesive, it's not very forgiving, so you got to make sure you get it right where you want, and then push it on. And that's going to stay really nice and tight. Glitter paper, it's very difficult to figure out how to get stuff to stick to this, so I'll show you some ideas. The other side does not. It's been scored, but I'm making sure it's perfect. And this is going to go on a piece of plastic. Okay, so plastic on cardstock, this stuff works really, really well. This, the red tape, is the strongest tape. So if you want it to be really, really tight, you can put this on right here and then close it shut, and that will work really well. But using this glue and this works really well too. Here, and I'll show you really quick. So I'm going to put the snail adhesive right near the fold, and that's going to hit. So once I put this on, I'm not going to be able to fix it. So I'm going to just check it out really quick. Now I can see there's a couple places on the very edge where I can put some of this, because this will be cardstock to cardstock, and so that will help that stick. So then I just put that on. Once you've got it on, it's not going to move. And this glue will not hold to plastic, so it'll just slip around. All right, then you'll just close the top like that. If you want to attach something to the glitter, you have to put something else down first to make it work. So you need a stapler, and I just got a plain circle. So then you can staple this down, and that makes this stick to this, stick to this. You will have a little mark in the back, but it's silver, so that's great. Then you can just use this glue, cardstock on cardstock, and this is going to stay on really nice. Now, if you're putting cardstock on cardstock like this, you want to use this kind of glue, but since it's such a small area, you can use the snail and it'll stay pretty well. And this is just a little pop dot for this part. And pop dots work really great if you're putting something on top of ribbon. So then you just glue that onto that, and that's how you get something to stick to glitter. This is what I do, kind of like a cheater method. Okay, I'm just going to do these two sides first. So I'm going to put down this snail, and then in the corners, I'm going to put down the really strong stuff. And then I'm going to fold it down. And it's going to stay down. I don't have to sit there and hold my fingers all along this because that tape is down. And then I use this to burnish it down. Okay, then you can hold it in the corners for like 2 seconds instead of like 30. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this side. This is just a faster way to do it. I used to just use this glue for everything, but now I realize the snail will hold it good enough and that glue will keep it down forever. And you do need to hold these edges for a little bit, but not the entire time. For the other two sides of the box, I'm using the sticky tape, the red double-sided sticky tape, and it's super strong. I put a little bit here, here, and here. So just peel off the red part. And the great thing about the tape is that you can travel with it. You can put this on and then you can actually put it together later, or you can wait in between. It's not like glue where you have to take care of it right away. But it's really strong and it's not forgiving, so you got to make sure you have it exactly the way you want it. And then push down. And once you push it down, if you try to take it apart, it's going to rip the paper. Alright, so this side was done with the sticky tape, and then I'll do this side with the sticky tape. And then you'll have a really strong box. Okay, the box is finished. The last thing that we need to do is adhere this clear acetate over it as a slip cover. Now, this is just transparency sheets, and you score it and hold it up to the light and very carefully bend it. Alright, and I just put the red sticky tape in 3 spots. It's really strong and it's going to hold it together and it's going to hold it tight. It's not going to be forgiving. Once you peel that off and push this down, then it's done. So you line it up the best you can. Peel, oh, it's on this side. Peel these off. And then you're going to stick it down. Peel those off, and then you can stick this down nice and tight. You've got to be careful, because once it's down, and you can't change it. Even on the transparency, it'll lose its stick. All right, so now we have a really tight fit. All right, this one I'm going to show you when you want to use mini glue dots or Zots, when these are the best thing to use. Okay, so just a quick review. We're going to put together this sucker holder. If we're going to put this on this, Designer Series paper on cardstock, then we can use the snail. Sometimes I'll just use this glue because it's just fast. But if you use too much of it, it will bubble and look yucky, so you just have to be careful. And if you make a mistake putting stuff down, if you're using the snail, you can always fix it without ripping it to shreds. But if you're using this glue and it's already dried, it's going to rip the cardstock in half. Okay, so this one I could have used either one because it's cardstock, but since I've got 2 layers of cardstock, I decided to use the glue. Cardstock to cardstock. Now, anytime you're using small pieces like this, you can use your snail because the snail will usually work. You're doing something bigger like a card, this glue works the best, but you have to be careful because you can get too much on it. Okay, and then this last piece, I think I'll do a dimensional, and then we have that popping up. Okay, so now I want to put a little bow at the top. So you can't use this glue for it. It won't stick. Snail, it will come off. Glue dot. Now the secret with the glue dots is do not touch it with your hands ever. So there it is. I'm not going to touch it. Only the ribbon's going to touch it. And then it's going to go straight on here, and that will stay on. You don't want to touch it with your hands. Okay, so now I'm going to put the sucker in it, but I'm going to do the sucker later. So I'm going to get the bigger ones, Zots, and with these ones, if you want to make these smaller, you can cut them as long as they're closed around one of these things. So if you fold this over, here I'll show you. If I wanted to cut this Zot in half, you could fold this over and then cut it. Just don't ever touch it with your hands or you'll ruin it. Okay, so there's a little Zot right there. I'm going to push it really hard into this. Okay, so now I can take this off and push this into it after my sucker's already inside. And I'll do that on the other side. Last sample, I wanted to show you why snail adhesive sometimes doesn't stick and when it's a good time to use pop dots with ribbon. This is a card that a friend made for me, and it came apart at the bottom because it was 2 layers of cardstock plus the twine. So she just used the snail adhesive. The snail worked at the top because it was a thin layer of cardstock and a thin layer of cardstock. So that worked. But 2 layers of cardstock plus the twine, the snail adhesive is not going to hold it together. So one thing that you can do is put the dimensionals on this. So that gives room for this so it can stick, and it just helps get it to work better. And if you use the Scotch glue on this, that would work too. But then you'd have kind of a weird fold in it because you've got a part that's thicker at the bottom. So, just going to repair this card, and it's so adorable. And then that's perfect because we have a little bit of dimension now. All right, I hope you learned something with all these adhesives, and good luck.